decide on how that works, right? But it's a very challenging role to break into out of college. So just be flexible, understand what that role entails, and try to solidify the various skills to kind of let you get there. But I think once you land inside of a company, then you get to build your network, you get to build your credibility, and then your opportunities are endless. Like I came into Amazon as a technical program manager, and then I wanted to become an engineering manager at Amazon. I got that opportunity because I demonstrated my job as a technical program manager, and then gained the credibility, and that opened up the door for other roles as well. So I think just always remember that the better job that you do, the more people will trust you, and the more people will trust you, they'll give you stretch opportunities, right? And so I think those are things to be very open-minded about. And then the last thing I would say is always in your career, like help other people, right? There's a book I read a long time ago. It's called Never Eat Alone. And it just talks about how when others ask you for things, go out of your way and help people. And the key is don't help others expecting them to help you back, right? Always going open-minded. I was super thrilled. Mariam reached out to me and goes, hey, we're doing this like panel talk. I'm like, oh, this is great. I would love to be on it. I'd love to help others. And so like I've always had that mentality. The reason that's important is like it's almost like karma. Good things happen to people that actually want to like help others, and so it's gonna come back somehow. Like you pay it forward, right? And so that's been something that I've done that's allowed me to build a really good network in my career across. Like the reason I got a job at Microsoft from Amazon is because my former Amazon colleagues had gone to Microsoft, and we had a good working relationship. They had the trust in me, and they gave me the opportunity to go to Microsoft. And that kind of was organic, and that's how it happened. So be flexible, learn the roles, gain experience, network, and help others. I think those are like the things I would say that you should always try to do in your career.
And if I can add, because I just loved what you said, Chris, about like being flexible with what you, like your first opportunity, right? Because even I didn't really touch on this, but when I worked at Deloitte, I applied to be a technology consultant at least 1,000 times. Like I was like, I'm not accepting anything but tech. I want to do analytics. Like this is what I want to do. But like I said, I was a human capital consultant. Human capital is who accepted me. Tech was like, like, you know, you're not there yet. You don't have the technical skills yet, but like maybe later. So I took that job as a human capital analyst, and I would take on initiatives. I would take on additional projects, and even training, like once you're at the company, to learn those hard skills that would then allow me to like pivot into, you know, something technical. So I really love that, Chris, because I feel like oftentimes we tell ourselves like, no, I'm not doing it if it's not like exactly what I expect it to be right now. And we don't think about the long term, right? Like this is me getting my foot in the door in this company that has technical people there that I can learn from, even though I'm more of a functional person right now. So I just love that, Chris, and I just wanted to add to it.
By the way, one last thing before we head off. Don't be discouraged if you don't pass interviews. Like it took me a while to even get into Amazon. I think I tried 2 or 3 times. I tried Google. Like so, the interview process isn't perfect too. One other thing I would say is like I got discouraged a few times where I was like, oh, I thought I deserved that role. I thought I was going to do really well. It's not perfect science who gets in and who doesn't. So I'd also say like when it comes time to interviewing, and if you don't get it for a while, and if you don't land at your first top choice company, don't get discouraged. The time will come. It'll be okay, right?
Absolutely. Mariam, I know you have other questions that you have, but there's few things that I wanted to add as like, again, things that I want people to know and remember. One, Lola, I think you mentioned is like more of the self-learning. So I think a lot of us are mentioning different programmings and different like classes. I would say the internet is so wide and everything is free. So like you don't have to take classes, you don't have to take thousands of dollars to take X, Y, and Z like coding courses. YouTube is your friend, and this is shameless plug for Google, but also you can just like learn more just by doing it. The way I learned art is like writing a code and not working, and then I go to Google, I'm like, okay, help me out here. And then so like that's one thing I wanted to mention. Two, I think all of you just heard us talking about resourcefulness. It is one of the most, I want to say, critical things to be successful as like entrepreneur working at the company or entrepreneur. So just be resourceful, show that you did your homework, show that you're doing the extra work to get there. 3, I wanted to mention about women in tech. So make sure that you advocate for yourself, just like Lola said. Tech world can be sometimes isolating for women as you go up in your career. And sometimes I am sitting in meetings that are 8 men and it is just me in the call. And it is disheartening and it is something that I want to change. And I'm on a mission to change that. So just more women going to tech. And last one, move around, just like Chris said. I started in Prime Video, Amazon Studios. Literally entertainment is something that I don't ever watch TV. There are people that are like, so-and-so is in kitchen. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. But that all to say, I had no experience in advertising, but because I built my network, because I work with people, to Chris's point, you build that, reputability, you're able to like move around. So ensuring that you're coming into a place, being a little bit flexible, and then build your reputation to move around within the company. The end.
Thank you guys for all the advice that you said. One thing that actually really stood out to me was like just helping others. Like one thing I believe in is like elevate yourself and others with you. So always make sure like wherever you're going, take this from me. That's a shameless plug to my Armenian scouts. I'll put it out there. But that concludes my portion of the interview. I enjoyed getting to know a little more about you guys. Now I'm going to pass it down to our Director of Activities, Peter Polongian, to conduct a Q&A portion of this event.
Thank you, Mariam. So as we mentioned, if you guys have any questions you would like to ask any of our panelists, please send them to our chairman in the Zoom chat, Kirk Mardirosyan, who has questions next to his name. And so I'll begin by reading off a few of the questions that were already asked throughout the duration of this panel. And I know we don't have much time, so hopefully this could be a sort of rapid fire round. So starting with a question for Chris, Patrick Nguyen wants to know if you think there's advantages of doing an MBA during your job, or is it more beneficial to do it full time?
So let me kind of walk through my decision. The reason I did it part-time was because my company at the time paid for me to get it, and the opportunity cost of leaving school for 2 years and not making salary and then also incurring the debt was like the math for me didn't make sense. And so I would say if you have an opportunity where you can work and get an MBA at a good school, that I would go for it, especially if your company pays for it. Now, if your company isn't sponsoring, by going full time, you get to build a stronger network because you're on campus more and you get to get more involved in the various extracurricular activities, which is harder to do if you're working full time and you're doing school. When you're doing both, you're basically going to be doing not the bare minimum, but it's harder to get involved in the extracurricular activities and build a bigger network, etc. Right? So I think it all depends on if you have the opportunity to work full time and have it sponsored by your company. I would go for it if you can get into a good school. If not, apply to other schools and get into the best one you can, and then go all in. Like if you're going to go full time, go all in, be involved in all the on-campus activities, the entrepreneur programs. Just like I would go 110% into it.
Yeah, so I guess if it makes sense, it makes sense. A question for Tatev. Michael Khoilan wants to know if you think it would be beneficial for a business student to learn the fundamentals of data science to aid in their career.
I think, as mentioned before, is that you don't necessarily need to be someone who runs the code or someone who writes the script, but you need to be able to understand what you're looking at. So I would say having 1 or 2 courses, or even 1 or 2 courses online to understand how to read data or how to read different graphs, how to translate the information that you're seeing into more insights, that would be excellent, I want to say, advantage for you and whoever you will work with.
Cool, thank you very much. One question for Lola. What drew you towards analytics, and how did your past experiences at Deloitte lead you to this seemingly different role as strategy and operations?
That is a great question. And honestly, I'm going to be very candid about what led me to analytics. So while I was at Deloitte, I worked very closely with a lot of different teams, like I said, who were doing analytics work. It looked very fun, and usually it was very male dominated. I am a very headstrong person. I'm an Aries. I am very fiery. So I just believed that, like, hey, I can do this too. Like, can I start doing this analytics type of work? Like, it looks great. Also, I knew that the salary is higher when you have that kind of like analytical background as opposed to, you know, sometimes just like the human capital consulting background. I knew tech paid more, tech consulting paid more. So that was kind of what pushed me to want to learn, was just feeling like I wasn't able to do it because I was a woman. I know that sounds crazy. And that was just my own little like thought. So I kind of rolled up my sleeves and I said, I'm going to sit next to the guys on my team and they're going to teach me. So that's kind of how I started. I would literally like learn with them. I would also do self-learning when I went home. So that's kind of like how I got my start in analytics. And then my role now at Google, I will say that having a consulting background has been very helpful because like what Tatev said earlier, you need to know, you have to speak both languages, right? So I feel like consulting kind of pushed me to a point where it's like I had to learn how to speak to customers or clients. I needed to learn how to speak about data in a way that's like in layman's terms, basically. And that's something that I still have to do today in my role, right? So like, I think just being able to take the soft skills and the hard skills that I gained from, you know, being in consulting and apply them to my role today has been, you know, very helpful. And I will say like what Chris said earlier, I know you had mentioned, Chris, that like how you even got to Microsoft was that you had some people who had come over from Amazon and like you kind of already have that reputation. I would say not the same, but similar for Deloitte, where, you know, I was interviewing and like, I think 50% plus of the people who interviewed me used to work at Deloitte. So like that was like a connecting piece that we had. Also Deloitte, you know, Google is a client of Deloitte's. So that's also something that's like the reputation precedes you, right? So it's like, okay, we've worked with Deloitte before, they've done this for us before, and you know, it was great. So that means we kind of feel like, you know, someone who came from there would know how to do that work. So I do feel like that all of those things together kind of supported me in making that change.
Cool. And then one final question. I know we're running out of time, but hopefully you guys could all hop in and answer this together. So this one's from Talin Amirkhanian. She asked, what's your take on the phenomenon of it's never too late? More specifically, what is some advice you would give to college students who are unsure of what they'd like to do in the future, especially if they're majoring in one thing but might want to end up in something totally different? So, whichever you want. I would
love to hop on this real quick, just because, like I said, like undergrad, I did not know what I wanted to do. I majored in health administration, got my master's immediately after. I honestly just had no clue what I wanted to do. It truly is never too late. I think as long as you know, take an opportunity at least that's closely aligned to something you're interested in. For me, I approached it as process of elimination. That's kind of how I figured out what I liked. I never had that awakening moment of like, oh, I want to do X, Y, Z. It was kind of like, you know, while I was at Deloitte, I'll take a specific project. I'd make a list of like, okay, these are the things I enjoyed about the project. And these are the things that like I can do without, right? So for me, it was kind of like fine-tuning and figuring out what the right path was for myself based on, you know, what I personally had experienced. So yeah, I would say like there's people who transition careers in their like, you know, late, even 50s, 40, whatever age you are, it's literally never too late, especially today. Like there's so much you can learn online. Networking is always huge and helpful. So I would say like, don't stress your career. If you look at where you are today, like I think about this every day is like, wow, I might have like 20 plus more years of working. That's crazy. You know, so in the grand scheme of things, like your career journey is so long. And I think we look at it as like this short sprint when truly it's a marathon. So I would say just remember that, like, you know, run slow. You're not sprinting, right? Like do a stride that you can maintain basically, because you don't want to burn yourself out like before you're at the finish line.
That was an excellent answer.
So yeah, I think that's a great way to end our Q&A portion. So I wish we had time for more questions, but this is going to conclude our Q&A. So thank you all for your great questions, and I'm going to be passing it back to Miriam for our closing statements.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you to our members for their great question. This officially concludes our Business and Tech event. I would like to thank our panel of speakers, Lola, Tatev, and Chris, for taking their time of the day and providing us with their insights. I am grateful for this opportunity. Now, thank you to the BusinessSC team for organizing this event, and we have more coming throughout this semester. If you have not done so, please follow us on our Instagram at BusinessUSC, and for any questions, you are more than welcome to email us at businessclubusc@gmail.com. With that being said, thank you to our members for taking their time to join our first event and to many more successful events coming our way. See you all later.
Thank you.
Of course.